Hello. Thank you for the invitation to speak to this group about PrEP and new delivery systems. What does the future hold? These are my disclosures. I'm going to begin by very briefly reviewing the data for oral TDF FTC PrEP before launching into a discussion of novel delivery mechanisms and agents. I suspect that everyone on this conference is well aware of the randomized data to support the use of both daily and on-demand or 2-1-1 TDF FTC PrEP, beginning with the 2010 seminal IPREC study demonstrating proof of concept of TDF FTC based PrEP having a 42% in the final analysis reduction in HIV incidence compared to placebo for MSM and transgender women offered the active product. The subsequent studies went on to initially confuse but ultimately confirm the efficacy of TDF FTC PrEP across a wide variety of populations and circumstances. In the lower right corner of this screen are the results of the IPERGAY study, which also confirmed the on-demand use of TDF FTC for PrEP for MSM in a study conducted in France and Canada, demonstrating an 86% reduction of the active TDF FTC product compared to placebo for on-demand or pericoital administration of this same agent. More recently, the US FDA, in response to the Discover study, a Gilead-sponsored randomized active controlled trial of TAFIFTC compared to TDF FTC, was granted regulatory approvals. As many in this room are also aware, TAFIFTC had previously been shown to be equally effective but safer for treatment of people living with HIV because the TAF moiety hydrolyzes to the active tenofovir product at 90% lower rates in blood plasma compared to TDF FTC, allowing lower levels of free tenofovir to bathe bones and kidneys, resulting in a more salutary safety profile. In contrast, TAF FTC has 90% higher tenofovir levels intracellularly, allowing it to maintain therapeutic activity. The question, of course, was, would that activity translate into preventive efficacy for at-risk populations? The Discover study randomized gay men or transgender women 1-to-1 to either active TAF FTC daily or active TDF FTC daily, and followed participants until all participants had reached 48 weeks and half of the participants had reached 96 weeks. The primary results, as well as the all participants at 96 weeks of follow-up, are shown here, showing a non-inferiority result for TAF FTC compared to TDF FTC, with extremely low rates of HIV incident infection in both arms, demonstrating that TAF FTC has significant prophylactic activity in MSM and transgender women. Importantly, in a bone mineral density subset of the Discover trial, the participants randomized to TAF FTC, shown on this slide in green, at both 48 and 96 weeks had more favorable findings at the spine and total hip on DEXA evaluations compared to those randomized to TDF FTC. Although importantly, although with short-term follow-up, there was not a difference in clinical fracture outcomes. In terms of renal safety, similar to what was seen in the treatment literature, extremely sensitive laboratory markers of renal function were also more favorable for TAF FTC compared to TDF FTC, although again, there was not a statistically significant difference in clinical outcomes between the arms, at least with this amount of short-term follow-up. One of the most challenging aspects in the United States today of prescribing PrEP is a discussion of which agent to prescribe. You can see here on a slide that I have shamelessly stolen from Julia Marcus, now at Harvard Medical School, formerly of the Kaiser Foundation, that the size of the tablets is significantly different. This can be an important distinguishing characteristic, particularly for adolescent populations who may be challenged by the size of the TDF-FTC tablet. You can see that we have data for TAFIFTC for MSM and transgender women only. We do not yet have any data for heterosexual individuals or people who inject drugs. And you can see the differences in bone mineral density and glomerular filtration rate between the two agents depicted here in the lime green and orange bars towards the bottom of your screen. However, it's also important to notice that the TDF-FTC arm had more of a beneficial effect on LDL lipids compared to TAF-FTC, and that the TAF-FTC was also associated by about a 1 kilogram increase in body weight over the first year of observation. I think it's important to mention all of these risks and benefits together in discussing which PrEP agent might be preferable for a given individual in a clinical setting. In terms of future options for both products and delivery systems, there are many exciting products and delivery systems that are in early stages of investigation, more mature stages of study and investigation, and even some that have recently received regulatory approvals. I'm first going to mention long-acting injectable cabotegravir, which recently was presented at AIDS 2020 as having statistically superior preventive efficacy compared to daily oral TDF-FTC in the HPTN 083 study. The study design is shown on this slide, in which participants who were HIV uninfected but at increased risk of acquiring HIV at 43 sites in 7 countries were randomized either to the cabotegravir intervention shown in orange on this slide or the TDF-FTC intervention shown in blue on this slide. Participants underwent a double-blind, double-dummy introduction of their active study product for 5 weeks orally to establish safety and tolerability, and then a direct injectable to oral comparison for a total of 3 years. Participants who stopped early any of the injectable products had the pharmacokinetic tail of the injectable product covered with a year of daily oral TDF-FTC, which provided an open label fashion. These are the primary results of that study, where in the cabotegravir arm, there were 13 incident infections for an overall incidence rate of 0.41 per 100 person years. And in the TDF-FTC daily arm, 39 infections for an incidence rate of 1.22 per 100 person years. This resulted in a hazard ratio of 0.34, which was not only within the non-inferiority boundary, but excluded 1.0 for a superiority result, and also the pre-specified study alternative hypothesis of a hazard ratio of 0.75, so a definitive superiority result for the cabotegravir arm. The cabotegravir is awaiting results of a sister study being performed in cisgender women in sub-Saharan Africa, and it's anticipated for regulatory submissions in the next year. I think many in this on this call have also been aware that a monthly Dapivirine ring for vaginal protection for women was shown to have approximately 30% preventive efficacy in 2 randomized placebo-controlled phase 3 trials, although follow-up open label studies suggest approximately 50% risk reduction with use in an open label context, and recently received European Medicines Association regulatory approvals and is currently under US regulatory review. Additional studies of multi-purpose technology rings and rings that are able to last longer than 1 month are also in progress. This expands our notion of PrEP to PrEP 3.0, as I like to call it. We've moved past PrEP 1.0 and PrEP 2.0 to include these exciting agents, which will hopefully be regularly available and in implementation and scale up in the not too distant future. I'd also like to bring the audience's attention to some exciting new agents and delivery systems which are currently in earlier stages of development. Gilead Sciences is developing Lenacapavir, a first-in-class HIV capsid inhibitor for use as part of HIV ART regimens for people living with HIV, as well as a preventive agent. It operates through inhibition of multiple capsid-dependent functions that are essential for viral replication, and has been shown to have about a 2-log reduction as monotherapy in people living with HIV with 10 days of administration across a wide dosing range. I'd also, additionally, it's worth noting that that agent, which is to be administered subcutaneously, recently demonstrated pharmacokinetics that could make it administered as infrequently as every 6 months. Islatravir, a currently orally available product from Merck, is also a first-in-class HIV nucleoside reverse transcriptase translocation inhibitor, or NRTTI, that also is being developed both for HIV therapeutics and for HIV prevention. Perhaps most excitingly for this talk is it is also not only being developed as a once-monthly oral tablet, which is currently in phase 2 trials, but also as an implant, which is based on Merck's Implanon and Nexplanon platform, which of course they have developed for female contraception and is widely available on a global scale. Using this same polymer technology, the ability to co-formulate islatravir with or without hormonal contraceptives provides a unique opportunity for a new delivery system and a new method of bringing at-risk individuals to the pre-exposure prophylaxis arena, should this be demonstrated to be safe and effective as a PrEP agent. I will conclude with some thoughts on the current state of the PrEP landscape. FTC PrEP has set an extremely high bar for preventive effectiveness. Both daily and on-demand, or 2-1-1 dosing, work. The 2-1-1 dosing, it's important to note, does have WHO endorsement at this point, although there is no US FDA approval for that use. More options are anticipated to allow user choice and be more congruent with sexual activity. That 2-1-1 dosing is limited to data for MSM. I think that's important to remember. And they are prescribed and monitored identically, which is a major barrier to clinicians feeling comfortable with providing it. TAFIFTC PrEP may be useful in specific situations, such as people who with existing or at high risk for renal dysfunction or known or suspected osteopenia or osteoporosis, or for people unable to tolerate the larger pill size of TDF-FTC. Again, importantly, at the current time, we only have efficacy data for TAF-FTC as a PrEP agent in a daily context and for MSM or transgender women. Again, the WHO and IAS USA guidance do endorse 2-1-1 dosing or oral dosing that's daily for MSM as first line. The CDC in the US still recommends only daily oral TDF-FTC, but importantly, more options are in advanced stages of development, including the Dapivirine ring, long-acting injectable cabotegravir, and hopefully Lenacapavir and islatravir. In the future, we also hope to be able to have topical patches, which may be able to deliver some of these agents in a more clinically acceptable and discreet delivery system. Thank you very much for your attention. And after the question and answer session, which will follow the remaining talks of this session, please feel free to ask any remaining questions by emailing me at this email address. Again, thank you very much for your attention.